Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Well, I have had this iPhone 16 Pro for, since December. And I have been using it to create my YouTube videos on a fairly frequent basis. The main reason is quality is good enough. It's easy to get the content from the phone over to my Mac. Really, the quickest way to do that is to airdrop it over. But if I'm, recording a video and then I'm going to go do something else, I just wait for it to sync to iCloud, and then it syncs to photos on my Mac. In which case, then I can just import it into Final Cut Pro. But I should preface this in saying that I am not an expert. I'm not really an expert videographer. I do shoot video for people. It's just fairly easy to do these days, whether I'm using the iPhone or I'm using my G9 Mark II. So the other thing about using the iPhone for creating these, I'm just using the internal mics, and what I do is after I'm done recording, go into Apple Photos and adjust the audio. So you've got these spatial microphones on the 16 Pro, which can be adjusted to either pull in all the sound from everywhere around. And if I did that here in this room, you'd hear the room. But if I set that to studio, then it just sounds like I'm right here with close to having a lavalier mic on. Maybe not quite like that, but close enough. So I wanted to talk a little bit about shooting high dynamic range video on the iPhone, which is really what it defaults to. And a lot of creators on YouTube say you should turn that off. Yeah, I have discovered you don't really need to with an unless. If you're frequently sharing with somebody that has a screen that is not able to display high dynamic range images, maybe you want to turn that off. But the other thing that you can do is, and if you're familiar with the iPhone, you know that you can go into the settings, the camera settings, and set the file formats to either most compatible or high efficiency. So high efficiency is the HEVC format or HEIF format, so depending on whether it's video or photos. When you export photos, like to email, for people, it automatically creates JPEGs. But this is what I've been finding, is it creates JPEGs. But the other thing you can do is if you're exporting a video to mail and you want to make sure that it goes out as standard definition, you have this little option, like when you click on that little share icon, this little square with the upload arrow, when you click on that, and I'll put a screenshot up here, there's a setting called, there's a little button called options. If you click on that button, you'll get a screen that allows you to set that to most compatible for each video. So you don't have to have your phone set to most compatible. You can adjust that when you're sending those images or video. So what I wanted to talk about really is what I do and what I've found about editing HDR video from the iPhone in Final Cut Pro. And it turns out the latest version of Final Cut Pro 11, it's kind of transparent. By default, in the settings, Final Cut Pro has an option called Color Conform that is turned on by default. And what Color Conform does, and this is in version 11, is it automatically adjusts your high dynamic range video to standard dynamic range. So for whatever you have your project set to, it's going to adjust it to that. However, you can turn that off for each clip. I mean, if you want to turn that off and adjust the high dynamic range video differently, and we'll get to how you might do that in a minute, you can just go in and when you click on the little film strip icon in Final Cut Pro, you can scroll to the bottom and you'll see color conform, and you can turn it off. And you're going to see with high dynamic range of video, it's not going to look pretty when you do turn it off. In fact, filming on the iPhone, I'm going to do that right now. Oh my God, right? So let's turn it back on. There is a tool in the color, in your color adjustments called HDR tools. You should not use that on any clip that you have coming in with color conform on, because those are additive. That is a setting, it's a legacy setting for older versions of Final Cut Pro, which didn't have the color conform ability. And so if you have old projects that have high dynamic range of video, that you bring that project in, it's not going to have that automatic processing. And using the HDR tools, you just grab that, plop it down on top of your clip, and it gives you the ability to work with the HDR in standard DR. So essentially, I don't turn HDR video off because I don't see the need to. I imagine, if you're not using Final Cut Pro, and I'm not familiar with other video editing programs, I don't know how they work with HDR video. So you'd have to check in the manual for those. I'm going to link in the description to a whole description of this on Apple's website of how this works. So that's just a little, I don't want to call it a tutorial, but this is a little explanation of what I do that works for me. And it may not work for you, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about it because honestly, using this phone saves a lot of time. I mean, I don't have to set the camera up. I don't have to connect the camera to Wi-Fi. So I can control it with my phone, because that's what I've been doing. I have my G9 Mark II on tripod, and I have the phone. Notice in some of my videos, I have the phone because I've got image sync open on the phone to control the G9 Mark II. And I don't have to do that with the iPhone. So it makes things just quicker. And I think most creators on YouTube who are not, say, professional videographers, photographers, I mean, in all likelihood, these people are using their phones. And so if you're on an iPhone, and if your iPhone can shoot HDR video, it's worth having Final Cut Pro. I originally was doing my videos with iMovie, but I've moved over to Final Cut Pro for the most part. And the learning curve is not that bad. I mean, if you're decent at learning software, Final Cut Pro shouldn't be an issue. And there are plenty of tutorials on YouTube about how to do stuff in Final Cut Pro. So what I do is, if I get to a point where I go, how do I do this? Go to YouTube. How do I do X? Bam, I find the answer. I go ahead and do it. So hopefully this is useful to you. If it is, pop the like button. Any questions, comments, leave them down below. If you think this is a bad idea, that's fine. You can let me know. Also, if this was useful to you, I have my Buy Me a Coffee link. So if you want to buy me a coffee, that would be great. I'm Todd Banner. I will see you next time.